podcast where this week myself and Andy Brown have a chat about the news. First and foremost, we're now in April, so the national minimum wage has hit £11.44 per hour across the UK. What does that mean for landlords? What does it mean for tenants and rents? Secondly, Scottish rent controls. Will it ever come in? Will it come in the UK? And what will be the likely outcome of it happening? Thirdly, our old friend, the Renters Reform Act, going back to Parliament again under Michael Gove with another ream of changes, apparently inflicted by Conservative landlord MPs. So are they sensible changes? Is it rubbish? And will we ever see the Renters Reform Bill go through? Let's get into it. Right, Andy, new tax year. A lot of the budget implementations are coming in. Number one on my list being the increase in national minimum wage to £11.44 across the UK. So I've done some rudimentary maths and thought, okay, if you work 40 hours a week on minimum wage, you now earn about £23,750 a year. So if a couple's doing that, that's 47 odd £1,000, nice. Which means a couple on minimum wage can now, based on referencing affordability checks, afford a property in excess of £1,500 a month.
That's a bit different to before, wasn't it?
Well, minimum wage, it's a massive move, a really, really big chunk that's been moved up, which goes into effect as of the 1st of April. So we're now crossed that border. So a lot of people have got pay rises almost overnight through Easter. How do you think that affects the lettings market? Does it affect the lettings market at all?
In my opinion, obviously people can get more for their money now. So they may look to move to a nicer property than they're currently in. And then others will want to keep that money, put it to the side, save it, because the ultimate goal for a renter, I would assume, is to buy a property. So if they've got extra cash there, then yeah, like I said, put that into a high interest savings account if they're still around.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
You get 5% instant access
Happy days.
At the moment.
Put it into a 5% interest rate savings account, and then just let it sit there and let it work for you. Rental prices may increase slightly because people can afford more, so people might jump on that. Might have an effect on that side of things. But yeah, overall, again, depends on the individual, doesn't it? Whether they put that to one side and save it ultimately to buy a property, or they want to move now and get somewhere a bit nicer.
Yeah, I think as a mass, it depends which side of the fence you're on, really, whether it's a pro or a con. But if you give an entire group of people more money, they have more money to spend, and that drives inflationary curves. We saw that through COVID. Loads of free money given away. Yeah. You can't increase the supply of products in general, so things get more expensive because there's more people who want to take something. My worry for tenants almost, or my advantage for landlords, depending on which side of the fence you are, is there will be no more 1 and 2 bedroom flats and houses available. That supply is reasonably fixed. But if your tenant base, we're still getting 25 inquiries to every property. So the demand is still well in excess of supply. If that entire tenant base has just had a pay rise of £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 a year, they're instantly going to have the financial power to bid more for that property. But what they don't recognise is everybody has that additional financial power now. So where a flat was 800, 900, there's that potential where it can suddenly jump up because someone's going to go, I'll just pay £1,000 for it because I've got a bit more money in my bank account now. And all of that additional money that people are now earning will get swallowed up in those costs. I wonder if it can be that direct.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could, because like you said, it's going to create more competition. People have, those increases are happening with all individuals, like you said. So, yeah, it will have an effect on rental prices. Like you said, if you've got 25 people there, you're probably getting, 4 or 5 offers from those 25, 26. So if they like the property, like you said, they're just going to, bid as much as they can and what they're comfortable with. So yeah, it might have a negative effect on.
I think it will have a negative effect on those people who earn 27.5, 30k a year, who were comfortably above the bottom of the market and now being swallowed up by the minimum wage. So those on fixed incomes, the sort of nurses, teachers of the world who can't affect their salaries, are now being pushed by the bottom of the market, who have new disposable income where those people don't. So there's that risk of that kind of middle of the market are going to get swallowed up by the bottom.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough out there. We're still getting, like you said, there's been a lot of talk recently, actually, that I've seen on news where supply is becoming easier for tenants. They've got more options. That's why rental prices have come down slightly compared to last year. But we just don't see it. We still see those people coming in, those queries coming in as well. So it's still a tough market for tenants out there. Part of me feels sorry for them, because it's a stressful situation. It's quite similar to buying a property, isn't it? When you've got that option on the market, you've got people looking at it, you're outbids, all of that. You've got the stress of moving as well. So yeah, tenants got it hard at the moment, but like I said, we'll have to see what happens with this increase. I mean, it's great news. Look, people are getting paid more money, right?
Yeah.
That's always
in theory. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It depends whether that goes in one pocket and out the other, if that's even a phrase.
But yeah.
So that segues us nicely into other news.
Yes. So I have got some news articles here, Mike, which I want your opinion on. I've obviously got my opinion on it, but I'll get the renters reform bill out of the way.
Let's do
first.
that.
Everyone's favourite subject, the renters reform bill at the moment.
Everyone can hit that 30-second fast forward.
But no one actually knows what's happening with it. I don't think the government do either, because they seem to be changing their mind yet again. So they're currently talking about making changes to the renters reform bill, and they're blaming it on Tory MPs that are landlords, that are kicking up a fuss because it doesn't help
because they've got some market experience.
So the things that they're looking to change now, Michael Gove is going to bring the renters reform bill back in mid-April. They're going to discuss it again and see what happens. It'll probably get delayed again, probably won't be talked about for another 5 months. But anyway, I'm going to give you...
Then we'll have a new government.
Yeah, we'll have a new government by then, and then it will change again.
Yeah.
But what they're planning on doing... So originally there was no fixed tenancies. So it's just going to be a periodic tenancy from the start. Tenants can serve notice whenever they want. So now what they want to do is have a tenancy for at least 6 months, which I think is
what we already have.
Is what we have,
yeah.
Right? So a tenant won't be able to serve notice till they've been in the tenancy for at least 4 months, 2 month notice for them to serve. So you've got a minimum of 6 months, which I think is fair.
Okay, so nothing's being reformed.
No, so they're gonna leave it at that. Review the operation of the courts before ending Section 21 notices for existing tenancies. So not new tenancies, existing tenancies, because basically what they've said is the justice system won't be able to cope with it, with the increased workload.
Well, it can't at the moment.
Yeah, well, so for new tenancies, they may sort it out for new tenancies, but existing tenancies. So if you've had a tenancy going for 2, 3, 4 years and that continues on, then your tenancy won't be affected by the Section 21 notice. So again, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Then the third thing, ensuring all types of student housing, including 1 and 2 bedroom properties, are covered by the planned ground for possession to protect the annual cycle of the student housing market. Apparently, this will ensure landlords can guarantee to prospective students that properties will be available to rent from the start of each academic year. So those are the 3 things. Don't know what your opinion is on that, Mike. Not major changes. I mean, it sounds like someone with some sense has got hold of Michael Gove and his team and given them a shake. Like you say, blaming Conservative MPs who are landlords for delaying it. It sounds like some Conservative MPs who are landlords who have some market knowledge have said that doesn't work, and that doesn't work. So the status quo is better than what you're suggesting.
don't ruin the market, don't fiddle with the market, bring it back in line.
Yeah.
Because the court system won't work. It's already under massive strain for residential property, as it is for a lot of things.
Yeah, what we're looking at now, average 9-10 months?
God knows.
To get possession of property?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a busted flush. So, and the same thing with short tenancies. Having a tenancy that can be broken from day one, just frankly, just encourages tenants to lie to get a property short term. They're trying to regulate Airbnb with one hand, and then create a permanent Airbnb style market with the other.
Yeah.
It's just garbage.
Just rubbish, isn't it? But we also
so brilliant. Well done for delaying it.
Well, we knew this was going to happen when it originally came on the scene. We've always said that there'll be changes to it for landlords not to take necessarily any notice of it yet, have an interest in it, but whatever they put out at the start, don't really pay attention because it will change. So we'll see what happens mid-April, see if there's any further changes on that. We'll keep you updated. But yeah, that is my favourite subject to talk about right now.
Thanks for that.
It's a great subject. Another news. Rent controls in Scotland. So the reason why I want to mention this is because there's radical plans in Scotland for not being able to raise your rent for 5 years. Okay, so that means that if you rent out your property and that tenancy was for a year and you had to remarket that property and find a new tenant, it would have to be at the same rent. You could not increase it. So what are your thoughts on that? Because something like this, if this comes into effect, you're going to have people like Generation Rent have a look at this and say, oh, great, well, yeah, let's protect tenants. Let's not raise the rent. We want this in the UK, etc., etc. So what are your thoughts on it, Mike? Do you think that's fair?
Well, your tone of voice has just told me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's rubbish.
In theory, I don't have a massive problem with a rent control system, because I don't like it when we come to a renewal and a landlord tries to stick 300 quid on a tenancy because they know they've got a captive audience in their tenant who don't want to move, who need to stay in that property. It's their family home. So some level of protection for tenants, I don't see any problem with. But we regulate that within our tenancy agreements to say we have maximum allowances for rent reviews. So in some ways, as usual, the market regulates itself. The problem with a full national government-led rent control is it does exactly what you think it's going to do, and it scares people away from investing in that market, and it further constrains supply of properties, which pushes prices up in the first instance. Now, I've worked in other countries. I've worked in the UAE, where the government will control how much rents can go up each year. But crucially, they give a figure each year of this is how much you can legally raise your rent by. So it gives both parties some level of ability to plan and to know what's going to happen, rather than a total fix for 5 years, because we've seen interest rates on mortgages fly through the roof, and landlords in some cases have reacted by putting their rent up. Others have said, well, I've been making money for the last 5 years, so I don't mind that paying for itself a little bit over the next couple of years until things return. And we should see that through 2024, touch wood. So a blanket ban. So if you're going to rent your property for £1,200 a year, it's now fixed for 5 years for £1,200. Now, inflation at 4 or 5% means that in 5 years' time, A, you're way below market rent, and B, to repair your property in 5 years' time is going to cost you 20 to 25% more than it's going to cost you to repair it now. So should there not be some kind of metric or mechanism for, well, my gas certificate cost me £72 now, I can reasonably say it's going to cost me 90 in 4 or 5 years' time. But I have to do that, and in 4 or 5 years' time, my property's going to become uneconomical to hold because of those costs. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of discussion that's needed on it, because my
thoughts on it would be like you said about interest rates and about cost increasing and all that sort of stuff. You're eventually going to get to a point where it's not going to be beneficial to rent out the property because you're losing money on it further on down the line. You're going to have more landlords that are going to end up selling their property because they can't be asked with those rent controls, because you're losing a bit of control from your property. And it's just going to have an effect on the rentals market. We've seen in Scotland that they've got some of the best sort of inflation rates on rentals at the moment, but that's just going to go when people lose control of that property. If someone
you'll be looking at pricing it for 5 years' time rather than pricing it for now. So rents go up automatically because landlords are building in protection, which again is automatically a bad thing.
Yeah, they're better off just putting, like you said, a clause in there that says you're allowed to raise the rent by 3 to 5% or whatever, or in line with retail price index or consumer price index, something like that. And then that's it. I mean, that's just the way that it is. I mean, I don't know why they want to do these, banning rent raises and all of that sort of stuff. Just deal with it, get on with it, and suck it up if you need to. The other things that they're saying as well is delaying eviction during the winter months, and also not getting to court if it's been seen to cause a tenant a high level of stress. So,
okie doke.
That's two other things.
No comment.
We'll leave that one because there'll be a few swear words probably coming out of mine and Mike's mouth. But yeah, that's it. So that's Scotland, but we'll have to just keep an eye on that because, like I said, when
the regions, Wales and Scotland are often used as proving grounds to trial a new law before it then gets rolled out for the whole of Great Britain.
So that's why we need to just keep a look on it, see what happens, whether it even does get that far. Because I'm sure that there'll be a few people out there that'll be putting their thoughts forward to potentially change that or stop that. Another one in 4 landlords will sell their properties in 2024. So survey of 2,400 landlords were asked three things actually. So how much easier was finding tenants in 2023 compared to 2022? Okay, 47% obviously said easier because of the market that we're in, and you're having 30 inquiries coming through for a property, or even more actually. I think we had a couple of properties where it was like 50 or 60. Crazy stuff. Landlords' biggest struggles this year were maintenance requests. Well, I would have thought that would be the case anyway. 28% of landlords said that. And then how will landlords change their portfolio? So 26% said that they're planning to sell all of their portfolio or reduce it because they are fed up with trying to keep track of the changes in letting, in the property market. So do you think that's about right? I mean, some of the landlords that I'm speaking to at the moment, it seems to be I'm selling. So all of the news articles you see at the moment, landlords are selling. Do you think that's just these news articles, just clickbait titles, or have we seen it on stats? You're a stats man, aren't you, Mike? So you would have seen what's coming to the market. What's
I mean, there's no way 25% of landlords sell off in a year. Absolutely no chance. I'll stick my flag in the ground and say it just doesn't happen. We're already 4 months into the year. It doesn't happen. It won't happen. If 25% did, then the UK would cave in. Frankly, it would the whole rental market would be an absolute shambles if it's not already. So it doesn't happen. It's the survey size or the survey style was too small. I would suggest it's probably more like half that. And there's always a natural level of wastage where landlords, they've rented out their own home and their circumstances have changed, or they've blended a family together where they had 2 houses, they're moving into one, so they rented the other out whilst they kind of all got to know each other. There's always these accidental landlord types who end up selling anyway, not just professional landlords. I do think, going back to the previous point about rent controls and this, that and the other and the Renters Reform Bill, all the policies that are being brought in are at the encouragement of a traditional normal Mr. and Mrs. Smith mortgaged landlord who have just bought a property as an investment, and they're good people and they're doing their best for their tenants, are being encouraged out in favour of institutional cash-led investor landlord businesses that hold hundreds, if not thousands, of properties rather than the individual landlord. And the rhetoric is that's good for the market. Sat in the southeast of England in a middle class area, I vehemently disagree with that. Yes, it's harder for us to deal with individual clients than it would be to deal with one institutional investor and manage that. But I know that individual clients have more of a sense of what's right and what's wrong and a moral level of maintaining their property than a business does, where the decision is made by someone who works there from 9 to 5, and they will take the path of least resistance or the path of, well, that's what our budget is. So that's my feelings on things. Is the push is for those kind of normals who own maybe one or two properties that they've acquired for their kids or for their pension, are being pushed away from a buy-to-let in favour of the sort of real estate investment trust type landlords.
I think there was 22% of landlords looking to expand their portfolio as well. So if you're
as many looking to expand as
cancelling it.
We'll end up level.
For landlords that are looking to add to their portfolios in this current market we're in, you know a lot more about the sales side of things than I do. Are there still properties to be had by portfolio landlords out there? Still getting good prices out there? Prices come down, prices gone up slightly? Because we're coming into sort of spring market now, aren't we? So how would that affect portfolio landlords?
Everything, the whole housing market as a whole, where we are in the southeast, is very well balanced at the moment. If you want to sell a house, you can create a buyer's market with your own property just by doing it right. My mum came round for Easter dinner the other day, and she said, well, my friend's been trying to sell her house for 9 months and hasn't had a viewing. Well,
no viewing?
It's too much money then, isn't it? Sorry to tell her that, but she's like, well, it's in this town, and I think it's a bit of a funny town. It's on at £900,000. Well, maybe it's not a £900,000 house.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's not even part of the conversation. It can't be a £900,000 house if it's been on for 9 months and no one wants to buy it. So, well, apparently that town's just quiet. So, well, that's what that person thinks, but I know for a fact hundreds of houses have sold in that town since the 1st of January. So it's not a market in one town in a commuter belt within striking distance of London is not quiet.
Yeah.
The market does not just switch off, I'm going to name it, in Camberley, but be red hot in Farnborough and Aldershot. It just doesn't happen. It's on the M3. It's on a train line into London. If it was quiet in Camberley, it would be quiet in the rest of the UK. I get that there's one industry towns which are isolated, that if the big employer leaves, it decimates the housing market. But the commuter market around London is not that. It is totally interlinked with Heathrow Airport, London, Farnborough Airport, all the big you've got all of the big world HQs within 20 miles of there. It's just garbage. The market's absolutely fine. So for landlords, depending on where you are in the UK, the picture is always different. There's an increase in auction properties, which shows there's an increase in deals that can be had. You just have to be in the right place to buy auction property. And there's the level of reductions on property, conversely, has actually dropped 2023 to 24.
Okay.
So the number of properties being reduced has dropped. The number of properties falling through has dropped. So the housing market has recovered in the last 12 months in the southeast.
So just going back to auction properties then, because it seems to be flying at the moment, how easy is it to get a mortgage for an auction property? Because some of the people that I've spoken to, just friends really, have never even thought about auction properties.
Mm-hmm.
They've always gone to the normal market. So when I had a conversation with them about auction properties, they were asking, well, how easy is it to get a property? How does the lender compare a property just on the normal market to an auction property? How does that work?
Well, there's two different types of auctions now. There's obviously the in-room traditional auction, and then there's the online modern method, that's inverted commas, modern method of auction, which has the same result, that effectively you exchange contract when the bidding is closed. So it's not easy to buy a property with a mortgage at a traditional auction because the expectation is it will complete within 28 days. So more people will either buy cash or they'll bridge. So they'll borrow money at a higher level. And actually bridging finance is pretty reasonable at the moment.
Right.
It's not as intimidating or crazy as it used to be. So if you see a really, really cheap auction property, bridging finance will still make you money. You just have to factor it in. The difference between that and the modern method of auction is there's absolutely nothing stopping you in a modern method of auction putting a bid in and asking for a 90-day completion.
Right.
Which gives you mega tons of time to arrange finance in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
If you want it, puts a bit more pressure on because there is a time scale. But rather than 28 days, you can push it to 60 days, you can push it to 90 days on the agreement of the vendor, as part of your offer, to say, yeah, I want to buy the property, this is my bid, and I want a 90-day window because I'm arranging finance. So modern method of auction, if you haven't seen it, you'll see it more on Rightmove, and I think, to be honest, you'll see it more as you push north than you do in the south. But it's getting more normalised now, where people need to have some certainty of selling a property within a certain timescale, rather than the uncertainty of selling in a normal residential fashion.
Yeah, it's just creating that educational piece for people out there, on how it all works. On all that sort of stuff.
And you can always scan back through our episodes to our episode with Ryan from Patterson.
Yeah, we've done episodes on it before. But yeah, if you're a property investor out there, you're looking to add to your portfolio, you're looking to sell off your portfolio, or whether you've got a single buy to let that you want some advice on, then just reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. We help people on a daily basis with what they need to achieve for their goals, financially and investment wise. But Mike, thank you. It's another episode done, and we will see you next week.